dear viewer. You caught me in my office hours. Welcome to some mandatory extra credit. This is a comments, questions, and concerns corner just for people who are enrolled and up to date in Betaology 101. We're taking a quick moment to answer some questions and inquiries from the class that I've gotten in DMs, comments, or straight up to my face, and to clear up some things. This too has a syllabus, believe it or not, and this syllabus has timestamps in the description for specific inquiries. Luxurious. These are answered in no particular order, so feel free to skip over some things. There is no frenetic energy here. There is soothing music and imagery. Let's all take some deep breaths. I sure need that. The world at large has given me the nervous system of a ladybug on Molly. Let's all look at shapes and colors. Question number 1, why the mic bad? I don't have money. Question number 2, can you tell us about yourself or do a proper introduction? That's very sweet, dear viewer. No. Number 3, was Karl Marx a beta? Probably. Jumping off of that, number 4, does this world building mean that being working class is beta coded? No. We just added another access to how gender interacts with class. We did not make them synonymous. A thriving alpha should be a Wattpad CEO. Most alphas are not Wattpad CEOs, not in today's economy. We can't all be the kidnapping alpha boy band pack, and that is a recession indicator. So menial labor or any sort of facilitation role is stereotyped as beta coded, like how being a preschool teacher is stereotyped as woman coded. But as we all know, not all women are preschool teachers, and not all preschool teachers are women. However, the cultural expectation does mean that more women are preschool teachers. All this is to say that yes, betas are doing the full middle manager more than anyone else because it's an expected life path. But as we established with our beta propaganda, being a rich early retiree who travels is also beta behavior. A poorer beta is likely stereotyped as a bitter unpaid laborer. A middle class beta is stereotyped as like a marketing guy or an accountant. A rich beta is a flit around, possibly platonic sugar baby. Of course, then there is the rich, independent, self-made betas that make their own fortune, the lawyers and all that. If we do the most typical ABO dynamics, that's like likely seen as fine because they are off doing their own thing and therefore out of the way for the AO Bank Fest. But we are working backwards from presumed alpharchy. We need to establish what makes this different from alphas doing the same behavior. What keeps them below alphas, which likely has to do with some sort of financial legislation to keep us down. So if we really play with hierarchy, depending on a beta circumstance, being self-made rich could be seen as gender non-conforming, butch, if you will. You probably gotta justify that your money is going to a pack and you have an alpha to oversee your shit in order to be acceptable. But hey, it depends. There's likely a lot of legal history here about who's allowed to have what sort of bank account. Again, in the modern age, we just have beta girl bosses left and right. Question number 5, why did you make this series? Because it's fun. Question number 6, do you hate alphas? Some of my best friends are alphas. Question number 7, you're providing options of anatomy, but do you, meaning me, have any specific anatomy in mind when making these videos? For these lessons, it may as well be a black box in my mind. Straight up censor bar knots left and right. I am a down to clown with anything type of gal, and so this is the part of ABO that can make people the most uncomfortable, so baby, you got this. You're my precious little scapegoat, and this class does have homework. If you want to do the standard male omega butt birth, okay. You want to somehow make this egg preg, sure. All I'm saying is if you want to play by these rules, depending on how you write secondary puberty, everything can be custom. It just depends on the timeline. Even the beta body can look like whatever. It can literally be residual dual sex cells. I'm not here to police your whole science. I'm here to provide the whole science guidance. Those who can't teach, etc. Which leads us to question number 8. Have you considered ABO doesn't have to make sense, it has to be hot? Here is where I pull back the curtain, beloved. I am doing a bit. I'm committing very hard to the bit. I care for the bit like it's a wanted child, and I'm an emotionally stable guardian who's gonna raise it to adulthood with as much care as I know how. It is a bit. You think I'm opening up that PWP 18K gender play fic and going, they haven't even considered the catastrophic implications on financial policy. Baby. We are doing this for the love of the game, and I came here to win. So I can make the bit hot, and so can you if you have a little can-do attitude. That sounds like quitters talk from somebody who doesn't want to splash around in creating new taboos and therefore new in-universe kinks. Okay, now forget that. We're back in the bit like 50%. We're like halfway submerged in the bit. Number 9, I have been tossing the term intersex around like it owes me money. Specifically, when talking about Omegaverse, we tend to conflate intersex, which is where there is a mismatch between your external genitalia appearance and characteristic features of your expected gender, defined by chromosomes, hormones, and internal reproductive organs, with like fantasy dual sex anatomy, stuff that straight up is not possible in real intersex people. The tagging system on AO3 for ABO with dual sex characteristics is typically intersex and then insert character name here. This is where I messed up. If we have our new chromosomes and anatomy, it does not matter how you decide that physically presents. That is now standard for this world. And so unless you mess with that further, it would not be intersex. Dual sex may also not work here because, again, depending on how you do your homework, there doesn't have to be visible dual sex tissue, but it is closer. So I will be using dual sex going forward. Thank you very much for correcting me. Question number 10. Can I use these ideas / do I have to use all of them? To which I say, girl, what? This ain't copyrighted. Go ham. I actively encourage you to pick and choose if you want to use anything at all. If you hate what I'm saying so much it inspires you to write the complete opposite out of spite, I will be thrilled. There are 1 million ways to write a Omegaverse, each like a snowflake or fingerprint or some other third unique thing. This trope fascinates me because it is inherently personal to what you consider escapist and want to explore. This is inspiration bait and putting myself through the thought exercise blender, not an actual rulebook. Everybody make more self-indulgent things now, make art for yourself. However, if you make something with this, tell me because I'm nosy. More on our goal and methodology in a moment, but first up, Number 11, real inquiry I have actually gotten from a friend, bless her heart. Z, does my Omegaverse world building need to be like morally good, ethically coherent? Bold of you to assume I'm a moral authority on anything, but fascinating question. Are we committing a feminism sin if our wolf gender perma-marriage woodsbang fantasy does not pause to turn to the camera and explicitly say, by the way, I support the intersectional struggles of real life and fictionalized marginalized genders, and I don't believe bioessentialism is real. Dear viewer, let me set our minds at ease. A Omegaverse we write on the weak corners of the internet, in my opinion, believe it or not, need not be activism. Shipping's not activism. You want to do activism? Get involved with your community? I don't think a Omegaverse is really moving the needle. I will say it depends, because everything depends. I am an everything is political believer, and I don't believe in clean-cut answers to anything. This stuff can tell us something about how we view the world, but it's messy as hell. Indulgent escapist fantasy often plays against our real-life politics as a way to help process real-world pain. I can't tell you what it is for you, because though we are connected as souls through what I can only presume is a mutually binding curse that Star Trek set in motion all those decades ago, I don't know you. And I will always argue that mindfully embracing your perverse fantasy in of itself counts as logging hours against any puritanical institution that seeks to control us all via shame by saying our innate desires are terrible and the only way to fix ourselves is by relying on those institutions, which will never be able to fix that because it's who you are, so we will always need them. Freaking it is the path by which we can create a better world, because at the end of the day, conquering shame will just make you a kinder, more effective person, generally speaking. But right now, we are freaking it together with a real specific goal. The central mission of taking this world too seriously means we have to take at least some real-world gender politics seriously, because that's just good, capital W world building. We are in many ways making a paradigm just to deconstruct it. Doesn't mean that's morally better. It just means it's a different mindset for a specific goal. Also, I would argue that taking this seriously can get us into far darker territory that can be deeply perverse and way more fucked up if you know ball, but hey, I'm just the emails guy. But what does capital W world building even mean in this context? Which leads us to a clarification. Number 12, there are two methods one can use to world build a Omegaverse: thinking with your brain and thinking with something else. We are leading with the full frontal lobe for this one. Remember how I said a Omegaverse is inherently personal, like just now? Remember that? I lied! Just a little bit. As loud and proud as I am about my love for the perverse, you will never know my full opinions on all things. There was a reason why I said in the last video, this is my Omegaverse. Kind of. Dude, my family watches this shit. They do it out of love and support. I am actively telling them that they are not kidnapped and can go, or at the very least skipped over some sections. They're still here and they're hosting watch parties. I feel so loved, and I am going to walk into the ocean and never return. But you know what? That's their choice, and I got a script to follow. So does this mean I am not getting self-indulgent here and there? No. All this means is that I am mostly not making choices based on what I actually prefer in my most self-indulgent brain space. I am a man of privacy and science. And also, most importantly, if you share a bloodline with me, mute the screen until I tell you not to. Okay. I can fetishize anything, and I mean that. Never doubt me again. You can give me anything, and I will find a way, because boy howdy, there is a will. We can use our brains for logistics and still spawn 1,001 beta deviancies. I am so serious. Relations you can return. And so, our brain-forward methodology leads us at long last to number 13. You say you are doing the implication scientific method. What? Let us clarify the implication scientific method, because I cut a lot of script about this. Like all things Betaology, it is both pseudo-factual and semi-vibes based. Omegaverse, as we saw in our historical adventures, is decided by community. Therefore, the implication method is by majority rules, essentially. There is an elite shadowy council of Omegaverse expert readers whom I consult. It is so shadowy they don't all know that each other exists, and they never will. When I am confronted with a trope, I judge the general popularity and awareness of it by researching how often it is written, and then asking the council whether they know it or not to see how well known it is. I am allowed to go apeshit on the betas because there's just not much to work with here. We can really change things there. But for this course, I am trying to make a beta fit into standard Omegaverse without smashing what it means to be an alpha or an omega with a hammer. So other than that Wikipedia chart, may that witch rot in hell, if a trope is almost ubiquitous to ABO, I have to prioritize it. If it is not super common but decently written about or spoken of, i.e., I could bring up this trope to somebody who's read ABO a lot and they would immediately know about what I'm talking about, I can use it. If it is rare enough that even the most advanced ABO readers haven't seen much to any of it, I cannot use it. Otherwise, this wouldn't be the people's betas. Now you may ask, Professor, you say the implication rules are so you do not rewrite alpha omega dynamics, and you straight up did. To which I say, nuh-uh, if you're a genius. For example, our AO headspace can be subverted, but they need to be heavily rigged in favor of typical dynamics that people are writing most often. They can also allow for plenty of subversion because that is also decently common. It's just harder to achieve. Another example, bitching is semi-common, and when I brought this up to the Council of Experts, all but one knew of which I spoke. However, when I brought up studding, which we'll answer more questions on in a moment, only one person knew what I was talking about. This would translate in universe to this not being a protogynous species. However, I got pronouns in my bio, so number 14, why can't we bone so hard we hit alpha puberty 3? With what we established with the implication method, I decided, hey, okay, you can't tango enough to fully take on the complete opposite role in reproduction, but I personally think that even if it was a bit harder, people would still find ways to be trans alpha, so I sort of took that as a challenge. So I decided you can do sex HRT for every aspect of O to A transition other than producing viable sperm, and you can maybe even do that and have a full physical and reproductive transition by other means, medical kink style. Sex-based HRT, but perhaps not sex-based nut, in a sense. This was solely to be a stickler for this video specifically, and because those 2 pages of what about the balls are better long forgotten, but scientific breakthrough, people. I have since changed my mind. The implication method has its faults, and sometimes I gotta make a judgment call, and in this case, putting the popularity before the science kind of messes with the science. Going both ways just makes sense. So you know what? Protogeny is canonical now, but So, question number 15. Anything to the effect of, Professor, what on God's green earth is the difference between the AO headspace and the full transition slip and slide? Great question. Let's talk about levels to clownfish. As we established in part 2, the implications of this world is primary gender is personal and secondary gender is relational. Hierarchy behavior kind of is gender. A sub-top alpha is gender non-conforming, etc. So that's step 1. Assuming a power stance in social interaction that isn't what's expected of you, that's gender non-conforming. But it doesn't physically affect you. So next step up, you embody a headspace of dominance or submission with another person enough to cause a temporary physical response, i.e. heat-like or rut-like symptoms. This is not a heat or a rut, it is a pseudo-heat or a rut. It basically requires some dedication and powering through innate instincts to achieve. Basically, you can bottom your way to greatness temporarily if you're insane enough. Then, for a full permanent A to O or O to A transition, there needs to be something else on top of this, like a bite and long periods of repeated behavior, I think I can make the bite science work here in both directions. Okay, that's why the science updated. I'm gonna let us all down, but Professor is trying, my dears. Wait for part 3. Now, we have established that an alpha or omega can beta themselves out of stress, and if they don't have like enough nutrients, basically if it's a survival thing, all that. Though whether or not that just stops a cycle or literally makes you physically regress back into a beta is unclear. You probably need medical intervention for that. But as for a beta, my gals gotta be sterile. They can have lower A to O surges, but anything on the top of that ladder we just established that qualifies as a permanent effect cannot be reached without medical intervention due to evolution. Basically, these betas can be very dominant or submissive because their place in the hierarchy demands it, but that won't really give them the old genitalia switcheroo unless you can get really into medical play. Which, let's remind ourselves, saying someone cannot fully secondary sex transition without medical intervention is not saying they can't do it sexy style. It just means, hey man, I hope you're into doctors. Hope you like stirrups. Anyway, back to the implication at hand. Clarification number 16. If anything, I believe my most intrusive edit to ABO standardisms was leave the nest instincts and a lot of kids. So how does that work here? Once again, we have room. Taking leave the nest instincts real seriously can run us into some problems. I hear you now. Professor, what about the problems with nobility and grain distribution? What about the strategic placements of dukedoms to solve supply chain management? What of the implications on nomadic cultures or close-knit communities or historical family estates? But remember, this is calm space. There will always be workarounds. I wanted to give us all a let's not be inbred workaround, but leave the nest instincts could be quelled by going to college or just finding a wife elsewhere and coming back, or doing an apprenticeship or returning, or finding a work around this instinct entirely. Just because we have an instinct, that doesn't mean we have to follow it. Humans have been not trusting their gut for centuries or learning to reinterpret our wiring. Most already written ABO fics would still work within this, right? If your character moves out of their family home, travels, does an apprenticeship elsewhere, it's probably fine, right? Or, again, they can just ignore the instinct and stay there. It's just that you get a little growly about it for a bit and then it can go away. Honestly, you can really work with this one. As for the problems with maintaining an estate ideally passed down through an alpha lineage, if that alpha has to go elsewhere, if you and alpha leave and come back, you just need an older alpha or a trusted beta to maintain the estate while you are gone. And if a beta is concerned with the family line, estate management, and doing the labor others don't want to do, that's right, handling wills and funerals is beta-coded. A gender-expected subculture of betas is goth. Now, I do not mean to take the tales of falling madly in love with death away from your omegas. I am simply saying that you guys need to get on writing that slow burn mortician beta x reanimated omega corpse bride fic. Thank you. Question 17. How does litters of children not mess up ABO? Yeah, as for, oh dear God, so many kids, how can that not be an unintrusive edit? Number one, the council has told me that's just straight up what's being written sometimes, bada boom. And number two, just because this is something most people are doing does not mean it has to be something that your characters are doing. And as mentioned, there's still trending lower birth rates throughout time like there would be in our history. It's a little world-building tidbit that doesn't have to mean anything to the guy you write. I hope we understand the totally foolproof logic here. If not, whatever. Question 18. What is the actual method for our next course, the Betaverse? Because, yeah, it's not actually we just do what we want. It has sort of similar conditions, but it's a different take. It has a different method. When confronted with the beta problem, there's two immediate ways you can think to solve it. Number one, the implication. How do we fit betas in an interesting way into what's already there? And number two, if there are three genders from the beginning of time, you have to rewrite everything about human history to be a trinity. And I do mean everything. This is the priority for Betaverse. To be honest, I said at the end of the last video, just to prove a point about the alphabet, that the Garden of Eden has an alpha and then a beta first, but that's more Betaverse. For Betaology, it's probably Omega Alpha, and then Cain is a beta because he gets cast aside. You get the gist. So while some things will carry over from Betaology, I mean, Betaverse is still looking at standard ABO dynamics of power, for instance, not everything will carry over. It's fundamentally a different take. I can do multiple takes. I got range. Hell, I could keep going past this. Don't tempt me. I got mushroom genders locked and loaded. Question 19. Many have been asking, if we have made up new chromosomes and they exist in a Punnett square, what sex is the AO chromosomes? And the answer is, I don't know, that scares me. Both scientifically and also I just imagine someone going through a simultaneous heat and rut and I got afraid. It could be enigmas, but I will be dragged kicking and screaming into hell before I make that pseudo-canon. That being said, it's probably goddamn enigmas and I'm mad about it, but if we game this out and consult Professor Aaron and the council, okay, option A. It's not viable. 1/4 of those embryos are just dying. This is why we have litters. Option B, maybe this is considered a different type of beta. It is externally physically similar, internally not. They have reproductive issues as opposed to being fully sterile, and they have different broods. So this would likely be in a society that recognizes broods, and those broods are inherently libidinal, although less than a hetero rat, and it's like more generalized as opposed to having a specific breeding imperative. Perhaps instead of tops and bottoms, these are sides. There could be a modern movement to reclassify this sex more accurately as, that's right, enigmas. However, no, enigmas are not a common trope. Most ABO readers don't know about them, and it's not like bitching, where it's not a staple, but it's spoken of often. It's just the fault of a few live action shows. I'm not doing it, you can't make me. So for my work, it will be option A. It's just not viable. But if you want to have AO folks abound, feel free. And finally, question 20. Are these bees? Have we just made bees? To which I say, dude, check out apiary genders. It's a thing people have made, and it's pretty cool. You can make new genders for days. You really can. This concludes my office hours, dear. I hope we all feel more prepared for the coursework ahead. I will catch you next time, dear viewer. Bye-bye.